Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be continuing our Legendary Hero series. As you know, there's a lot of races in the Warhammer Fantasy world. Many of them have already been implemented in Total War Warhammer. Last week we covered the ones from Game 1 where a Legendary Hero could be introduced for each of the races there. Now, in this video, we're going to focus on Game 2, where there are 7 races right now. Yes, I'm including Norska here, and yeah, we need a few more Legendary Heroes, that's for sure, especially since some races do have Legendary Heroes. This is, for example, the Scaven, but they're attached to a faction rather than the race fully. And yes, there are other races like the Lizardmen who already have a Legendary Hero in the form of Lord Croak, but at the end of the day, who doesn't want another legendary hero? Variety is the spice of life, of course, and not every character can be a legendary lord. So I've got some fun picks for you guys which will make sense lore-wise and, in general, just some cool characters. But before anything, a big thank you to our sponsors at Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a website where you'll be able to buy keys at discounted rate for Steam and other different platforms too. So if you want to get your hands on the Elden Ring DLC for minus 23% off, maybe you want to jump into some Total War Pharaoh, as that's getting a big update at the end of this month, well, why not pick that up for £13 instead of the current price? Purchasing from this website actually supports the channel at no extra cost to you and gets you games cheaper, so I mean it's a win-win for both of us. I'm jumping into Hearts of Iron soon, so I'm going to be purchasing from this website, as that game has been heavily recommended to me, and yeah, let's be honest, it's Paradox, they do a lot of DLC. Not only that, but we do have a giveaway going on for the month of July. Win a game of your choice. All of this can be found in the description below, where you can actually check out Instant Gaming to see what they have on offer, and yep, the giveaway is there too. All you have to do is click on that link, register your participation, and that's it. You don't even have to purchase a game. A big thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring the channel. It does help out, and really, it's nice to be sponsored by a company that I personally use myself. With all that being said, guys, let's return to our regularly scheduled programming. Alright, we're going to start off with Norska, and the reason why is because technically they were a Game 1 race, but I wanted to put them into Game 2 because they were the pre-order incentive of Game 2. Now, Norska is in a weird spot because really they should be treated as a undivided faction, which is why I'm going for a undivided character, which could be really interesting to Wulfric and Frog too. This is Bjorg Bearstruck, and yes, he is a werebear. So quite close to Krakadrak, there is an area known as Ersfjord, home to the tribe of, you guessed it, the Ersfjordings. This is a Norscan tribe which has been blessed with lycanthropy. Yes, werebears, werewolves, and other creatures do actually exist in Warhammer Fantasy, with skinwolves not actually being considered werewolves. Now, Bjorg and his family are said to descend directly from Ursun the Great Bear himself. It's important to note here that, yes, even old Proto-Norscans would have worshipped Ursun if his influence would have been around, but essentially got twisted by the ruinous powers. Even those touched by a deity can still fall. Now, this doesn't mean that his transformation comes from Ursun, more so his tenacity and his strength. But Bjorg found himself blessed by the Dark Gods after slaying the twin sons of a Chaos Lord. The Dark Gods had blessed him, and he was then known as Bearstruck, having the form that you can see on screen right now. Yes, he is essentially a giant werebear. The old model doesn't look too great, let's be honest, but then again, this was from, what, 5th edition? Because this was originally a Dogs of War unit. However, it does make him very unique. He is a werebear, so he fights with his claws and teeth. He does obviously have talismans and stuff, because he used to be a former human. And as you can imagine, a Norska, a strong fighter as they are, now Bearstruck is going to be quite the terror in the battlefield. I love this character. It's something that I've always really admired. I've got him somewhere, actually. I've been painting up a bunch of Norskins recently, and he was fairly active in the lore. Now, he's usually seen as a Dogs of War character. Well, his unit is seen as a Dogs of War unit, better yet said, as after the Battle of the Monoliths, Bjorg realized that he could sell his services as a Dog of War and be able to earn a lot of cash and a lot of glory. A lot of people would consider this as the reason why Bjorg should be a Dogs of War character. However, I think that he works really well for Norska for a number of reasons. One, he is still technically human, even though very twisted, so it works well with Wulfric. Also, since he is very bestial, he works well with Frog, King of the Monsters. He is technically a monster too. He's the halfway point. Werebears haven't really been talked about too much in lore. There is a bunch of information, but there's like Can they change back? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It very much depends. The character is obviously quite unique, and let's be honest, Norska needs all the help that it can get. I'm actually fairly surprised that we still haven't seen anything for Norska. We know that Creative Assembly want to do something for them. I think Bjorg would be a really cool character to introduce as a legendary hero, because he could work with any Norscan faction currently in game and anyone that might be introduced in the future in the form of a DLC. Plus, it's a werebear, it will be totally unique, so all they have to do is really update the model in terms of aesthetic and so on to make it look a little bit more modern, and there you go. Alright, next we're going to go into the Dark Elves, and we're going to talk about Shadowblade, mostly because technically he's in-game, as he features in a bunch of cinematics for Warhammer 2 in the whole Eye of the Vortex campaign, and to be honest, he's a cool character. Keep in mind that I'm not talking about every single possible character for each race, I just want to go through the kind of cool ones. Shadowblade is an interesting character because he's a young Dark Elf. 2 centuries, and yes, I know that sounds old, but keep in mind that that would mean that he would have been born after the whole fall of Ulthuan, the rebellion, Malekith's coronation to Witch King. So the fact that he's considered young by elf standards and still considered one of the most proficient assassins in Warhammer Fantasy history makes him quite popular by many fans of the Dark Elves. Many people say that he essentially moves like a ghost, able to go onto High Elf Hulk ships and slaughter an entire crew one by one, going into a heavily fortified area and still manage to take out his targets. He's even feared by other Dark Elves, so much so that children are told stories of Shadowblade to basically keep them in check, which is kind of morbid, but then again, you know, it's Dark Elves. And in general, any other Dark Elf, an adult who would be speaking and spreading tales about Shadowblade, might find himself killed shortly after. That's because Shadowblade wants to remain a ghost. He knows that people are aware of him, he just doesn't want people to know what he's doing, anything that might have been heard from him, hell, even general rumors, nothing to further make him a possible target by anyone else. The less people know about him, the better. He's a really cool character, and at the end of the day, assassins are just really cool in general. We do have to talk about the fact that in lore, he is tied to Hellebrand, but, I mean, we've seen him in the whole Total War Warhammer 2 campaign. He's kind of different there. They've kind of rewritten him a little bit. So it does make sense to allow every Dark Elf faction to pick him up. And yes, gameplay-wise, he would be an assassin, a character killer. But he should be one of the best character killers around. You might be saying, well, why this when we already have like Deathmaster Snickage for the Scaven, for example? I know there's a lot of assassin characters, and believe me, if you go into Warhammer Fantasy history, there are lots and lots of assassins. I think that an assassin would work very well for the Dark Elves, and he would not lead an army. He would just be a legendary hero. He'd boost up other assassins if you want to take like a death squad, you know, go full ninja. And if anyone needs a assassin legendary hero, it would definitely be the Dark Elves, because it fits with them so well. I know some people would be saying, what about Talaris or Kruram Darkhand and stuff like that? I still think that those two characters have the possibility of one of them at least becoming a legendary lord, possibly Talaris, but it makes no sense for Shadowblade to be leading armies. It's fine for the Deathmaster for the Scaven, because there was a Scaven list for the whole, I think it was in 6th edition, so that was something that you could see. But when it comes to Assassins of the Dark Elves, they hide in the shadows, they're supposed to be really, really stealthy, take out their target, fuck off to the next one. High Elves now, and there's one character that I personally want. This is Caradrian of the Flame, also known as the Chosen of Asuryan. So, early into his life, he was a bit of a jackass, but then again, which elf isn't? Petty, arrogant, you know, all the stuff that makes elves a prime target for Sinesh. However, this didn't really last too long. You see, when on a pilgrimage to the Shrine of Asuryan, he had his life changed, which is kind of interesting. He had been able to see where he had gone wrong in life and what he needed to do to atone for himself and to make sure that Elfkind was protected. Branded with the rune of Asuryan himself on his forehead, he gave away basically all his possessions and took the vow of the Phoenix Guard, and apparently has not spoken a single word since, eventually rising to the ranks of the captain of the Phoenix Guard, and he is known as to be one of the most proficient fighters that the elves currently have in their disposal. So he's a Phoenix Guard, and you'll know more or less how he'll fight because he uses the halberd as everyone else. He does also mount atop of a Frostheart Phoenix, and has been seen basically just ripping apart and tearing apart anything that comes in front of him. He does have a army of Phoenix Guard around him, so I can imagine him being a character which is there to support other legendary characters. You could have him there as a character killer, as a unit killer, but also buffing up characters that he's protecting. His character was popular, rules were fairly decent on the tabletop, I'd say. Now the thing is, with the High Elves, there's not a lot of options. There's a bunch of characters which could be introduced, but I think that they'd probably focus on the 8th edition ones. This one could be great to support Alariel, for example, and so on, maybe even Teclis, but in most cases, the High Elf characters are very, very strong, so maybe boosting up armies, essentially doing what a lot of legendary heroes have been doing lately, like Gordas, where they boost up units to such a degree that an army attached with that legendary hero essentially gets the power of like a legendary lord. The only thing that I could see as a problem here is lack of voice lines, because this character does not talk. I mean, he probably grunts every now and then and so on, but yeah, not a single word uttered. It might kind of lose some immersion there, so maybe some lore would be rewritten for that, just to give him some proper voice lines. It's fine when a monster doesn't speak, but when a humanoid character like an elf doesn't, it's like, well, you click on it, you hear nothing. It kind of annoys people. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But yeah, I mean, overall, cool character. Let's move on. Scaven time now. We're going to talk about Squeal Gnawtooth. He is a packmaster of Clan Moulder, but has been seen working with pretty much any other clan, as long as people are willing to pay for it. Remember that a lot of the stuff with Scaven, like, they don't own the Hell Pit, it's on loan. They don't Warp Lightning Cannon, it's on loan from another clan, and so on and so forth. This character is actually quite interesting. You see, he was born a runt, which in Skaven society usually means death. You'll be killed by the other Skaven younglings, and well, not possibly, you will be eaten. The grand majority of Skaven runts will end up killed before they pass infancy. However, as you can guess, Squeal did manage to survive, mostly because he found that he had a hidden talent, able to control common rats and giant rats without too much of a problem. This meant that he was protected as long as he was accompanied by his horde of vermin. This also became his greatest strength because the master molders of Hellpit took note, realizing that they might have a talented young Skaven to be able to become a valuable asset to Clan Moulder. He was thrown into the larger pits, and yeah, wolf rats, rat ogres, they didn't rip him apart. This is something that generally does happen, as you can imagine. Only the Hellpit Abomination seemed to be kind of immune to him, but then again, controlling Hellpit Abomination is very, very difficult. So, as it was, Squeal was employed to train as a packmaster, and he's very famous throughout Scavendom for that, which means that, yes, Clan Moulder does rent out his services to other Skaven clans on a regular basis, anytime that any minor warlord clan, or even some of the greater clans, might need packs of wolf rats, rat ogres, or whatever to go and destroy their enemies. He's a cool character because of that, and he could be implemented in-game to be a buffer for your monsters, which, again, you kind of already have with some packmasters and so on, but this would be the perfect time, you know, Creative Assembly, hint hint, to introduce giant rat units and rat swarms, all that different stuff that we are still missing. Hell, if they want to be really nice and implement some of the stuff from 6th edition, you know, the fan-made stuff that did become technically official, Chimera rats and so on, well, yeah, this would be the perfect time. And it would be kind of cool to see a character that could be used by other characters. There could be a quest chain associated for him, which would require you to pay a decent amount of food and money to be able to pick him up, but it would be well worth it because you'd be able to have a character that could make your rat ogres absolutely destructive. To this day, I still have no luck using rat ogres. Now, a lot of you guys might be saying, well, why Squeal and why not Scar Bloodtail? And I do think that Scar Bloodtail has his time to come, but the problem is that Scar is only for Queek. He's only known to be working for Queek. Squeal has been able to work with other clans, and really when we see legendary heroes come in, they should be centered around the race as a whole and not one specific faction. When it comes to Scar, I am hoping that Creative Assembly have some major rework planned for all 3 characters in the Race to 8 Peaks, and this could see Scar introduced for Queek. Time will tell, but we do know that Creative Assembly want to do a lot more reworks here and there. Let's hope for the best. There's not a lot of characters missing for the Lizardmen, unfortunately. That's actually a good thing too, so not that bad. It's because they got a lot of attention, it's just the race doesn't play too well. So we're going to talk about a character that we've spoken about in a very recent video, Chakax the Eternal Warden. So this is a temple guard, and the thing is that he is so good at his job that he is being tasked on protecting the Slann as they slumber to determining the Great Plan. So given his name, you can rightly assume that he is very old even for a Saurus. It's not known at what age they tend to die, but we do know that certain Lizardmen do end up dying after a while, with some skinks feeling really, really old at 200. Sometimes it's just that, you know, they die because, yeah, hunted down, murdered, and so on. But Chakax has been known to be going for a long, long time, and he alone is the defender of Slann. He alone is so competent in melee combat that he's been able to take out whole regiments by himself. In some cases, this isn't known as a too special thing, mostly because this type of lore is repeated with the Lizardmen a lot, but there's some reasons why he's known to be so powerful. The key to the Eternity Chamber, for example, allows him to up his speed to fight as fast as his opponent, meaning that if a very fast assassin jumps in, he's going to move as quickly as that. The Helm of the Prime Guardian allows him to heighten his awareness of threats, making him a real apex predator, because he's able to keep an eye on anything around the area. And then finally, his weapon, the Starstone Mace, allows him to nullify the effects of magical weapons, making him very good at dealing against champions or really powerful assassins who might be kitted out to the nines. He's a cool character. Definitely we need something like this to protect Slann characters, because in most cases you will be using a Slann Lord. Yeah, it just would be cool, and at the end of the day, his model looks great. That's the most important thing. We're going into the Vampire Coast now, and I'm not going to lie to you, this one was really, really tough. It's mostly because there's very little lore on the Vampire Coast, there's stuff with the Dreadfleet and so on, but there's one character that could be done really, really well. He never had a model, he does have artwork, and he is already technically represented in Warhammer 3. This is Vanghise, the captain of the ghost ship Shade Wraith. First up, we have to talk about this. Yes, Vanghise Revenge is already a spell with Total War Warhammer, but that could be done in such a way to say that this was one of his ships in his fleet, right? Mostly because it would be kind of cool to see Vanghise introduced as a proper character, because, I mean, come on, the Vampire Coast need a legendary hero. As much as I would love Captain Dracula, that would be for just Harken. We need something that is available to everyone, and they need to move Aranessa somewhere else too. Nobody knows when Vanghise was turned into Undeath. What we know is the story has been going over 100 years, more or less, that there is a spectral captain and ship that forms part of the Dreadfleet. He is out there looking for specific types of gear, he's looking for a bit of treasure. It's very Pirates of the Caribbean-y. It's said that his ship is a absolute terror throughout the seas of Warhammer Fantasy, and it'd be cool to see a ghost legendary hero. Really, the spell could be summoned in as him just bringing in the ship. Actually, it doesn't have to be this is a separate ship, because we've kind of got that already when it comes to Malachi, right? Just the difference is it's done as a spell, but I could see this being done with extra skills to keep using Vanghise Revenge. Rather than summoning it physically, it could also be like a really good gunnery wight, where it essentially just boosts up all your shooty type of units and so on. The thing here is that the Vampire Coast definitely needs a legendary hero. I don't think they need DLC. I think they're fine as a race, they just need a touch up here and there, fixing up some issues, giving some unique mechanics to each of the legendary lords, and they're pretty much sorted. I know some people would say Scratch Half-Dead, who is an undead Scaven, but I really don't think that another Scaven is going to be useful here, especially since we know we're going to get another Scaven Legendary Lord eventually with Gracia Thankwall, so this could work just as a separate thing. And lastly, here we are with the Tomb Kings. Now, I'm not going to speak about Prince Apophis again, because we've spoken about him in like 2 videos recently, so we're going to do something completely different. This is the Vizier known as Sehenazmet. So, it's quite important to note here that he never had a model, but he did have lore. The model that you can see on screen is, I believe, from a golden demon competition. But when the Tomb Kings awoke, so did SRINIVASAN in the city of Qatar, where he essentially just got back into work, literally just creating, rebuilding, and trying to care for all the monoliths in Nekara. This is a character that is known not to lead armies. I know some people would like to see him as a legendary lord, which we talked about in a previous Tomb King video, but I'd like to see him as a legendary hero because of this. He's there to make sure that constructs are working as they should be. And it's said that his incantations are so strong that he is now in a construct himself. And this is why everyone, when they think about this character, see him as a special type of bone giant. Now, what could be done really well about this character is, yeah, he could be a special type of bone giant. Rather than focusing on shooting, he could have some magic, he could do some melee damage quite well, and he could have a unique skill line focusing around buffing up your constructs. So you can have them with other armies, dramatically making your constructs better. Now, they're already decent as they stand. These would be bone giants and like the necro kitties and everything. It's definitely a cool character. It's important to note here, though, that if Creative Assembly do a Tomb Kings DLC, it's very likely never going to be this. It's going to be Apophis, because they've got a model. The character is also very well known and highly requested, and would fit very well in the future if Nagash ever gets implemented. Though, I would say, and this is something that I keep echoing, we're going to have a dedicated video about this soon, because I do think that it is important to kind of put into CA's radar the idea of, again, character pack DLCs, where no units are being implemented, but a legendary lord with a brand new faction, and a legendary hero for this, that, and that, right? It wouldn't be just like 1 and 1. It'd be like maybe 3 legendary lords split out to different factions that don't need DLC anymore in terms of units, and a few legendary heroes going to different locations. If DLCs are going to be incredibly far apart, well, it might be nice to get these DLCs in between. The idea is keeping content consistent and the player base interested. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think about all these characters that have been discussed today in the comments below. Let's have a bit of a discussion. You guys might have better ideas for different characters. I just want to talk about some cool characters because it's always really, really fun to do. I really do enjoy doing these videos every now and then. So we have one more to go, Game 3 races, and this one is going to be quite interesting because I've more or less got an idea on what I'm going to talk about, barring one faction, and it's not the one that you probably think of. Once again, a big thank you to our friends at Instant Gaming for the sponsor. These sponsorships are actually helping the channel keep a little bit more solvent whilst I am sorting out some stuff, and obviously we are going into a bit of a slow period at the moment, and it's allowing me to take some attention to work on a quite frankly big project, probably the biggest project that I'm ever going to do on this channel, which is currently planned for the end of year. I'm looking forward to this. It's been a labor of love. If you've been seeing me on Twitter, I've been bitching about it a lot, but believe me, it's going to be worth it when it's done. And even then, it's going to be the second biggest project, because after that I've got to go into an even bigger project. But yeah, there's a lot to come. See you guys, have a great day, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.